And on behalf of the team at Complete IT, I'd like to thank you for taking valuable time out of your day to join us. I'm Dan Scott, the Innovation and Systems Director for Complete IT, and today I'm going to introduce you to our vision of the modern workplace and the benefits to your business from embracing new and innovative ways of working. So today, we are going to cover, firstly, what we mean by the modern workplace and how what we're talking about today isn't just about being on lockdown. Then we're going to move on to talk about how offering modern and progressive ways of working are key to attracting and retaining talent within your business. Then we're going to go on to areas for you to consider when thinking about your journey. And then lastly, how the office of the future can work, or at least how we envisage it can work, and how Complete IT can help you with your journey. So to kick off with, today isn't just about me saying that we're all on lockdown, everybody needs remote access, and that you can't buy a webcam for love or money. We all know that already. Today is about learning to work smarter, work safer, and how to empower your teams to do what they need to do wherever they are. On a very personal level, work isn't somewhere that I go, it's something that I do. I don't leave the office and stop thinking about it. In fact, some of my best thinking happens when I'm not in the office. I need technology to keep pace with me and to support me to be my most productive. I should be able to collaborate on a proposal with a colleague when I'm at home on a tablet and she is in her office on a PC. If I send a proposal to my client, I expect my CRM system to be updated automatically to reflect it. My client expects the agreement to be with them in minutes, not in days, and for the services to be ready to use quickly. I should be able to sign in securely on any device I choose, a PC, a Mac, a smartphone, or a tablet, or anything else that's going to come along. Data from one of my apps should be available in another automatically. Sharing should only ever be a click away, but it should be restricted so it's easy to use and safe. Everything I do should be secured by design and not by me having to jump through hoops. This is what we envisage as the modern workplace. I think that we can all agree that the world is changing. To my children, their friends and family are only ever a video call away. All information is available online and everything should be instantaneous. Technology has changed the workplace too. The number of teams that we work on has doubled, and we need better ways to collaborate and help us stay on track so that we avoid information overload. That was taken from a Microsoft Information Worker survey. Who would have thought that not so many years ago that the word app would have made it so deep into our culture and our lexicon? That statistic there is taken from a CCS Insight Employee Mobile Technology Survey. Apps were also a reverse revolution in terms of technology. They were used personally and filtered up into business use. What we know in the industry is shadow IT, which, to explain, is the use of solutions that haven't been authorized by a business or by an organization, but they've been adopted by people that felt that what they were given didn't meet their expectations or needs, so they went off and self-served. Shadow IT forced the hand of traditional IT leaders to give people what they wanted, or of course they went off and got it themselves. However, when they went off to get it themselves, they would be doing that outside of the control of the business, and also to the risk of data falling into places that you wished it wouldn't do, because you had no knowledge that it was there. I thought this quote was absolutely fantastic when I was doing my research for this. We've all heard so much about over the last sort of 6 to 12 months about so-called digital transformation, but I think this absolutely nails it. The two words for me within this that I think really got it were productivity and growth, which is what it all comes down to. One that I would like to add is scalability, and that scalability in either direction, of course, without the need for large upfront investment that then may become incorrect as the business needs would change over time. That's what it's key to avoid. So next, we're going to go on to attracting and retaining talent. Now, not something that you may think is immediately apparent when you're talking about modern workplace solutions, but let me explain. Our people are our business. We're passionate about training, developing, and finding the right new team members. I'd like to talk today about one group that some of you may not be familiar with the nickname for, if you will, and that's Generation Z over there on the left, or Z for those from the other side of the Atlantic. Generation Z are aged between 9 and 25 and are our next generation of leaders. The technology they have grown up with is a lot of what we're discussing today. Remember the reverse technology revolution, where personal technology has found its way into business. Not only do they expect it, but they aren't overly fond of offices, it would transpire as well. And from the grid over on the right-hand side, there are 3 statistics that I'd like to share with you. First of all, that 44% of companies with no remote working policy that they would see as old-fashioned, sorry, they would see them as being old-fashioned. 55% would opt for an opportunity in a company that had a remote working policy over one that didn't. And then lastly, 39% would take a lower compensation package for the right company with a remote working policy, obviously substituting telecommuting for remote working, which isn't great news for the ones who don't. This all rises with the millennial generation, you'll notice, who are already in the workplace. But the differences with the Generation Z is the technology. That all changes when you reference the list over there on the left of the technologies that have become notable whilst they have been coming of age. It's that focus on immediacy, on portability, and on accessing what they want, where they want, when they want, that's very different to those that have come before. So looking at these sort of statistics, so start to ask yourself, how does your business intend on attracting the next generation of genius grads who will one day become the next generation of leaders? More importantly, how will you retain the rising stars once you've found them? You need to offer the right environment, the right mindsets, and of course, the right tool sets. Next, we're going to move on to areas that you can consider when moving your organization towards that of the modern workplace. What is it you need to think about? What areas are there? We've broken it down into a few. First of all, equipment, and this is more important than ever. How many of you have been on a video call recently, on a conference call, whilst we've been in this crazy lockdown situation where the first 20 minutes has been spent with people saying, can you hear me? Is this on? And can you see my screen? There's a good reason for that. There's a good reason why it never works as well as we would hope. And that's because traditionally most businesses haven't invested in the right technology and in the right equipment for people to be able to conduct this kind of working. The 2 key ones, of course, the webcam and the microphone, along with the computer to connect them to, of course. But the 2 key peripherals, if you will, of the webcam and the microphone are key, because what do you want? You need people to be able to project themselves and their voice, to add their expertise and their feelings into the meeting. Relying on inbuilt technology that comes with most laptops, for example, is counterproductive. And to get the best out of this method of remote working, you need to make sure that people are empowered with the right equipment. Next up is collaboration. Email is not enough. You need technologies that can enable your virtual teams to act as one in real time, to allow people to be as if they were in the same room, looking at the same screen and co-authoring that document or that spreadsheet or that presentation or working on that project together. So think about things like co-authoring of documents online, and think about things such as virtual whiteboarding or group video chat in order to be able to get people together and act as one team. Next up is telephony. And this is one of the big takeaways that we've had from the lockdown, is that far too many businesses ended up in a situation where they realized, when things were happening very quickly and the government were issuing the guidelines that we're now living under, that their businesses were still dependent on telephone systems that were bolted to walls and didn't allow people to operate outside of the business. Telephony, although often forgotten because it's sort of taken for granted, is very much still a very key business means of communication. And whilst younger generations may prefer methods such as chat and more online communication, telephony is still extremely relevant and can't be forgotten about. It's one of those things we learned from experience, please, that we saw a few weeks ago, that there were a few crises that we needed to solve. Next up, apps, and here's the big one, and the one that everybody will have a slightly different opinion on. The list that I put on there is not exhausted by any means, but there are just a few that I felt that I wanted to highlight to you. First of all, at the top there with the purple icon is Microsoft Teams, which, yes, is part of the Microsoft 365 suite, but it does deserve a special mention. You know, Teams to complete IT as a business is the foundation of our collaboration as our various teams. Teams at its core allows chat functionality and video functionality split into discrete working areas. So, for example, if I'm working on a project with, say, 5 of my colleagues from across the business, we have a place where we can chat and have meetings that's specific to that project, so that we can always go back and reference material that we've used before. The key to Teams, of course, is that it allows you to bring other items in, such as file sharing, such as external content from other apps on the web that it integrates with, so that you end up with these discrete working areas that are specific to a function or a project or a service of your business, so that people are very dedicated and devoted to what's there. If somebody joins that team, they get the benefit of being able to see all the historical data, which they're not going to get from just being a member of an email distribution group, as an example. So Teams is very critical to complete IT and was definitely worthy of highlight outside of what's next on there, which is the Microsoft 365 suite. The Microsoft 365 suite has far too many points to be able to list off here. But bottom line is collaboration in the cloud without the need for on-premises IT. Everything from document co-authoring to email to file storage to surveys, invoicing, everything. It's a comprehensive suite. Different things will be relevant and applicable to different businesses. But of course, part of what we do at Complete IT is help you to tailor that to your business. Next up there is Zoom, which I appreciate is a little bit controversial at the moment, but I do urge you to look past some of the clickbait that gets printed. For businesses or organizations, for example, where Microsoft 365 may not be appropriate and who have the need for video conferencing, Zoom is a good option. Of course, with organizations and security concerns, in my opinion, it's not what they have, it's how they react to them, because every company and every software package at the moment has security concerns. I would much rather trust a company that admits it and starts working to improve it than those who just pretend it doesn't exist. So I think it is worthy of mention. Next up there is Trello. Trello is a cloud project management function. Again, for those who maybe aren't using Microsoft 365 and haven't got availability of tools like Planner or Project Online. And Trello really is powerful for its integrations because it can talk to other tools. Remember, we said at the beginning, the modern workplace, I expect data to be available in one app from another without having to do things like copying and pasting. I need it where I need it for the time and the work that I'm doing. HubSpot is up there. Again, something that we use ourselves. HubSpot is a CRM and marketing platform that's powerful, easy to use, was born in the cloud and highly available, and so fulfills those functions by default. Very powerful piece of software, and again, fantastic integrations with other things that other tools that people are using. And then lastly, there is JIRA. JIRA will be familiar probably to anybody who is involved in a software development function. JIRA is a collaboration, development, bug tracking, and code sharing application, an environment for discrete teams of people who can be geographically dispersed to work on applications and code, and invaluable if that's your area of expertise. The next up is security. Security has to underpin everything that we do. The first thing I would say with security is beware of free. Now, free means many things. Free can mean no single sign-on. Free, which means that you're going to have different usernames and passwords to sign into different applications, which brings about the risk of those passwords not being secure or them falling into the hands of hackers that can then breach your data as a result of other websites becoming breached and their passwords being accessed. Free can also mean that your data doesn't even belong to you. And the reason that the service is free is because the data that's being put into it is being mined, analytics being performed on it, and the data being sold to third parties, which is where the revenue from the service comes from those running it. Free, is worth saying, does not always mean evil. It does, however, mean that you need to understand what the ramifications are from you consuming a service from somebody that you aren't paying them for directly. What does it mean to you? So please be aware of it. But security needs to be baked in to everything that you do. You need to ensure that you're accountable and responsible for where your valuable company data is being stored, being accessed, being processed, and how you've taken steps to ensure that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And then lastly, and so importantly, is the culture. Technology without culture and change can't solve anything. How do you bring your remote teams together and celebrate success? How do you teach your teams to adapt to this new culture, to this new way of working? For example, somebody may not be online at 11 a.m., but they are at 11 p.m. because quite simply they're working when it suits them and working on a different pattern. Is that acceptable? What are the expectations? What do you need? You need to lay down the rules and you need to create that culture so that people know what to expect and how they can celebrate success together. So there are some areas of collaborative of ways and means you might be starting to think about. Again, with apps, just to backtrack slightly, one thing that I would add with apps, start thinking about legacy applications that you might have within your business. Start thinking about apps that when the government imposed a lockdown, you wondered how you were going to get access to. Everybody's got one. So start thinking about where that could be moved to in order to enable people to not have to be tied into an environment in order to be able to access that critical data. When we peel back the covers and look at how companies are working today, we see a myriad of tools that are being used. There's the team of developers who are living in team chat. There are the executives who use email. The reason for multiple different collaboration tools and channels is because every group is unique and they each have their own functional needs and their own work style. Some will only ever use email, where some will only ever use chat, and vice versa. What's really important is that you cater and understand the different needs of the different functions within your organizations. If people don't find the approved IT solution for them that you've made available, the odds are they're going to go off and self-serve a consumer grade version. And as we mentioned earlier, that's where the concept of shadow IT can come in, that can create so many problems for you in terms of all of a sudden you realize that one team of people are using another file sharing service that you didn't realize that they were using. Then you start to wonder, is the data being held in that file sharing service encrypted? How are people accessing it? Are they having to use a two-factor authentication system whereby when you log in, it sends a message to your phone with a code or gives you an app on the phone with a code so you can prove who you say you are? The answer to those things may be no. And to come back to my earlier point about the ramifications of free, what's happening to that data that you put there? Who's got access to it? What's happening to it? Is it sufficiently secure, and is it held according to principles that are acceptable to your clients and customers, for example? Is it stored in the wrong geographic locality? Things like that. So please don't ignore the trends that people are asking for, because by putting it off, the odds are that it's going to happen anyway, but it's going to happen outside of your control. Siloed applications there in those today's challenges section that we've got up. Siloed apps, multiple logins, difficulty sharing. Look at how are people having to get access to the various bits of data that they need? Is it the most efficient process? How would they perform better? How can they become more productive by having all the information they need in one place? And then what can facilitate that for you? Really, really important, because hopping around between different applications, it says they're wasting time. It's a drain. Not having things available where you need them is a big draw on your productivity. So lastly, what does the office of the future look like? If your teams are adopting an anything, anywhere, anytime mindset, then what's the purpose of the four walls? Here are our thoughts. Firstly, we do have to make an admission that, how hipster we think is this photograph. There are a number of dodgy beards going on. Our marketing director pointed out correctly, there's not a pair of socks in the room. And the lady at the back appears to be suspended on a bookshelf, which I don't think is entirely advisable. But to the content and the point, on the left here, we have environmental attributes. And on the right, we have people and their purpose. So the office space of the future that we see, when people are working in a mentality that means they can access their data wherever they choose and however they choose to, becomes a collaborative hub. It becomes a place that people come together to work together and to get things done in a group that will be better than doing it individually. It will be a shared space. And by shared space, we could also mean that it may not be just your own shared space. You could be sharing that with other companies and other organizations. And because of that, and because people aren't there all day, every day, it may have with it a smaller footprint, and then of course with it smaller costs. Over to the people want to be there rather than having to be. It's somewhere that people come to get things done, to serve a purpose, to enhance their roles, and of course their relationships with their colleagues. And so it brings about it a different mentality. The time that they have within it will be structured, because if you weren't in somewhere every day, if you were meeting up with a team face to face that you didn't meet very often, you would ensure that you come there with a plan. So a plan may be, I'm working on 5 different projects at the moment. Remember, we went back to one of the earlier bits that we spoke about where we said that people now, according to that Microsoft survey, are working on double the number of teams and projects than they ever used to be. So you might be saying, look, I'm a member of these, I need to meet with these different project teams. And so we're going to schedule these meetings in, and we're going to solve the following challenges within those meetings. And everything becomes team working. Why be in a room with people you don't see very often if all you're going to do is solo working? That can be taken care of outside of the organization, because you have access to all the data you need wherever you are. What are the three things that organizations need at the moment but have concerns about? First of all, scalability. So we're moving on here to how we at Complete IT feel we can help you with your journey. So scalability, the ability to scale up or indeed scale down as and when you need to without associated in upfront investment in order to do so. Nobody wants to provision an IT system that meets the needs of a business now that may not be relevant for that business in say 12, 24 months time or sooner. So it's having a scalable and elastic service model that allows you simply to add in or remove as you require. Second of all, secure. Knowledge that if systems and data are safe when people are working remotely, it's still the fear of the unknown. If I can't see that physical server, for example, then where is my data? How do I know my teams aren't falling for phishing emails or leaving systems open to attack? So knowing that things that end to end have the security has been considered and that you aren't left open and vulnerable. And then lastly, smart. My teams need to be able to collaborate and work together and be productive. That's the key to it all. Team meetings, document co-authoring, and enabling you to foster that culture and that sense of team. So with that in mind, we have recently launched a new solution that we believe can benefit our clients called our Complete Virtual Workplace. It's a fully cloud-based solution which can be set up remotely and supported remotely. From meeting with our clients and undertaking focus groups as we do and gathering feedback, we know that businesses need IT that can scale as their business changes or grows, either scaling up or down and without that large upfront investment, as we've already mentioned, whilst ensuring that productivity always remains high and they have access to the latest modern workplace tools. Our Complete Virtual Workplace utilizes our existing relationship with Microsoft and our extensive expertise combining the best of Microsoft's cloud solutions. The solution allows your teams to work securely and from any device, personal or business, from any location, anytime. All that's required is an internet connection. It's been built around the need to ensure that your teams are productive, collaborative, and time efficient, all for a monthly per person cost that's easily scalable. So you can predict the cost of your IT in relation to the people in your business, as well as some optional add-ons that we put in from other services and areas of expertise that we have, like telephony, application hosting, and even published desktops for any legacy applications that you would look to move to the cloud but isn't now appropriate for you to migrate to a new solution or a new service. We can facilitate those as well. Everything can be put in one place. The solution also gives you access to our Learning Academy, which offers you 25 licenses for your teams to use in order to upskill, and includes modules on the Microsoft suite, cybersecurity, as well as other areas such as mental health and well-being in the workplace, as well as many other areas. This is the same that we offer to all our Complete IT Manager support and response clients. So that's a little bit about our new Complete Virtual Workplace. You can see some of the components there that we include as core. And as I said, in addition to that, we have the ability to offer additional modules such as telephony and shared applications, shared workspaces, excuse me, for legacy applications. So at this stage, I've been seeing some questions coming in at the top of my screen, but because of the joys of working from my home office rather than being in the normal office with a couple of screens, I'd like to invite Jessica back to just help me out with some of the questions, if that's okay, Jess.
Yeah. So is it one of the questions here? I'm not sure it is, but is there a demo available of the Complete Virtual Workplace?
Yes, there is indeed. Yeah, we can happily take people through it again via a remote session like this and show some of the ways and means that we can deliver these services obviously in a demo example environment. So including things like, for example, delivering those legacy applications via a virtual desktop from the Microsoft Cloud rather than running from a server, as an example like that. Absolutely. Please just contact details on the screen. If you drop an email in, a member of the team will happily give you a call back and set that up.
Okay. You mentioned a training platform. Is this just something that's available to your clients, or is that more widely available?
It can be widely available. However, to our clients with a Complete IT Manager support or response agreement, we provide 25 licenses at no cost to them. So there is definitely the ability for people to access it. Please just drop us an email or give us a call, and we can get you in touch and give you some details.
Okay, there's a question here, but I think that's better answered off the webinar. So we
Okay.
will email you, Joe. There's actually no other questions in at the moment. So if anyone has got any more, just use the Q&A at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
We use Microsoft Teams for video conferencing, thanks to the great 100% cloud services you guys set up for us. I promise I haven't just made that up. How come we did this webinar on Zoom and not Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, now Teams has a facility that's just launched, I think it was in March, which is a public broadcast that I can't remember the exact name for it now, essentially a webinar in all but one word. And the issue with it is at the moment is it's not quite where we need it to be in terms of being very easy for people to access that don't have a Teams account, and also for us to control as the webinar presenters of who's got access to microphones, cameras, all that kind of thing. So it's a sort of line in the sand from Microsoft of an initial offering, but it's not quite where we need it to be yet for that one-to-many discussion. Now, to clarify, for group meetings within the company, we don't use anything else. That's all we use. The only reason we have this account is I think we've had it for about 18 months now, and we've used it for a while, of doing these one-to-many webinars where you want to be able to control, for example, who can talk, who can't, and when people can access the meeting, that kind of thing. So that's the reason why, but hopefully not for very long. If the Teams group meetings functionality, webinar functionality basically, can reach a little bit more maturity where we need it to be, then absolutely we'll have no need to do it via Zoom.
Okay, there's another one here. So we're working remotely, as most people are at the moment, but struggling with rerouting calls.
Mm-hmm.
Suggest.
Yeah, you're not alone. First of all, is the main one. It's very strange, isn't it? I think telephony almost fell into like I think people view it a little bit like a sort of electricity, water, and gas. If you know what I mean, it just kind of works. You lift the phone up and you talk to people, and all of a sudden, when we were told that everybody had to leave their offices, it was a bit of a blind panic, I think, for some, in terms of how on earth do we get the phone calls out, because there's always someone here, or or if we're not here, it's a bank holiday, things like that. No one's ever had to face, and thankfully had to face an extended period where we can't get into our premises. So there are a few get out of jails, if you will, if things are going really, really badly. So in the worst examples, but the most serious examples that we've seen where, say, for example, clients had telephone systems where they offered no remote working capabilities whatsoever. So a traditional telephone system, PBX as it is, on the wall with some handsets on the desks, and it can't get anything out of the office. We've been able to, the worst case is provision soft phones, so apps that run on your phone and computer on our hosted voice platform, that allows us to then take your phone calls from the office and forward them out to our platform so you can answer them as if you were in the phone system in the office. Now, it's not a perfect solution, but nor were they perfect times. So normally we would port telephone numbers across so that your numbers would ring into our platform. But when people were faced with, we all have to go home tomorrow and we can't answer the phone, it was, you have to come up with something, you've got to do it quickly. So there are options there. Again, please get in touch with us if it's something that you're really struggling with and you think we can help. There are ways and means of doing these things. It varies by situation of what's possible from the telephone system, but there are some options there to get some of the phone calls out of the four walls of the office for the next at least 3 weeks for us now anyway.
Okay, this is quite a timely one. Is there any possibility that Teams will have the facility to see all members in conference as opposed to just 4?
Yes, more. They've just announced it. 9, I think they're doing now. I think it's not as many as Zoom, but it's getting there. The question of when you'll get it, because Microsoft roll out updates to their 365 tenants in a phased approach, mainly to make sure they haven't got any problems with the rollout, but also to reduce the load on their infrastructure, especially at the moment when their infrastructure is understandably quite pushed. So I can't guarantee when you'll get the update, but they have pushed it. So you'll get up to 9 people now. They've also enabled the virtual background features. So rather than just blurring your background, you can pop yourself on the Copacabana beach or something, or wherever you so choose. I had a conversation with somebody the other day who was at NASA Mission Control. So that's coming out as well. Very welcome, I have to say, because 4 feels a bit it is a bit of a challenge, and it's the four who shout the loudest as well, because it's whoever's talking. So I think having more on will definitely be welcome, because Zoom goes up to about 16, I think, or something like that, if the screen's big enough. After a while, they become so small. If you're on a laptop screen, you can't see people anyway. But yes, so good news on that one. The update's gone, so it's going. I just can't guarantee when you'll get it, because how Microsoft, what order they do it in, I don't know.
Okay, we've got a couple more coming in. We have some self-employed staff that use their own equipment. Can Office 365 be configured to allow secure access to company data on personal equipment, allowing remote wiping?
It most definitely can. The first thing I would urge you to think about is, and this is a really, really important part, are your policies and procedures of what people agree to when they join your organization. So having a BYOD policy that people have signed up to and understand is the first step before the technology. Like culture and change management comes before technology. And in this case, it's really important that your freelancers, your contractors, that they understand that if you are, you're undertaking a contract with our company, in order for you to access our data, we have to have the ability, for example, to manage your machine. And we have to have the ability to put either an agent or a piece of software that can live on there that we can use to ensure that things are controlled, and that we have access to your machine if needs be, and all those sorts of things. So it does need agreeing with the people first. So to get slightly product specific for a minute, Microsoft have two product strands, if you will, of the 365 stack as we would all know it. So they have what was known as Office 365 and then Microsoft 365. Now, just to confuse you even more, because they're really good at this, they confuse us and we work with them, is that they're now rebranding most of Office 365 to all be called Microsoft 365. So it's going to get even weirder. But we'll keep them separate for now. On the Microsoft 365 side of it, you get everything that you're used to in terms of email, Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, but they added in a load of features and functionality around managing the machine as well as the services and the software. So they provide you with a copy of Windows 10 Business. They give you what's called Intune, which is really a machine management piece of software. So Intune is where that would come in. So your freelancers would be required, in order to access your Microsoft 365, they would have to have an Intune, the piece of software on their machine. That then gives you the ability to conduct things like rights management, control access, all those sorts of things that you're referring to have granular control over the hardware and the laptop, as well as the file sharing and things like that. So yes, definitely there, but it would all start with a bit of policy and process. Again, we've got some from some documents and policies that might be able to help you as a starter for 10. Please do get in touch, and then obviously you can take that, tweak them, tailor them to your individual needs. But BYOD, even for those of you listening that only have PAYE payroll and you don't have anybody who's on a contractual nature within your business, BYOD is something again that people are going to have to grasp the nettle of when it comes back to that shadow IT conversation that I mentioned a few times, of people going off and using applications that you haven't provided them, which means that end to end how they work and where they store their data and how you authenticate to them. Devices are the next layer of that. People are going to want to use, and probably are already using, their personal devices to access your data. So it's really, really important that you make facility for that, and that suits you as well as suits them. So for example, that control element of you can access our systems from wherever you choose, but we do have to ask that you give us some control over those devices, because we have to have control over our data. I'm sure you understand, is different to it just sort of being everywhere. Because although you might wipe a phone that is a company phone belonging to a team member who's no longer with you, you can't do anything with their personal device unless you've undertaken that policy and that process.
Perfect. And I don't think there are any more questions now. There are none that have come through. I just wanted to add quickly, our webinar next week, we're running these weekly at the moment, is going to be around Microsoft Teams. More of an in-depth look and live demo, some areas that you might not know that you can use. So we'll be sending out emails at the beginning of next week, and it'll be all over our social media. So have a look and register for that one if you're interested.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I'd just say to people, you know, again, to reiterate and just retread a little bit, start thinking about, whilst we've got this time where we'll normally have more time to do a bit of thinking, start thinking about where places in your IT, in your business, where you think people are being held back. Everyone's got that old application. It could be the old finance system that they call the old database. Now, of course, when you ask people, they'll all go, yeah, we don't need anything in it anymore. It's just there for reference purposes. But as soon as something happens to it, within 5 minutes, people get a bit panicky. So it probably is more important than you think it is. How can you use that, move those systems away to something that will allow people to self-serve, to be more productive, to have access to the information they need where they need it, at the time they need it, on the device they need it? You know, where could that go? Where are the problems that you've got? Because when you understand your problems or your pain areas or your areas of weakness, we can then come up with a strategy of how you can take that and work out a plan of where you go going forward. But knowing the problems first is absolutely critical and key. And yes, it just goes to say, we said it before, but if you'd like to know anything more about what we've spoken about, if you have any questions that weren't appropriate to ask during this, you'd like to pick it up one-to-one with somebody, please just get in touch with us. Our team would love to help. And I'd leave you with two things. We as a business are encouraging all our teams to, as it says there, to come back better. And I implore you to do the same for your businesses and for the UK as a whole. You know, let's come out of the block sprinting from all of this, hopefully in 3 weeks' time. And lastly, as it says there, you know, stay home, save lives, and protect our rather amazing NHS. So that was all from me. So I'd like to thank you again for giving up your time to be with us today. I hope you found it valuable. And yes, look forward to the one next week on Microsoft Teams. Thank you, everybody.